For most of human history, space was out of reach, not just physically, but psychologically. It belonged to gods, myths, and stars we could name but never touch. Yet deep down, we kept asking, can we go there? Could we live beyond this planet? This longing wasn't a luxury. It was evolution. The same impulse that made us cross oceans, build pyramids, and launch telescopes to peer beyond the known. When Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the world paused, not because of one nation, but because of one shared moment. And then, silence. For decades after that, space stopped feeling urgent. No more televised liftoffs, no more global countdowns, no more collective awe. Until one company, not a government, succeeded in doing the unthinkable, reusing rockets, launching at scale, promising Mars not in theory, but in practice. SpaceX didn't invent the dream of space exploration. They simply reminded us it's still alive. But something has changed, this time. Space isn't about national pride, or Cold War rivalries, or symbolic flags planted on gray soil. It's about business models. It's about data networks. It's about private ventures with public stakes. And that shift has stirred something deeper. Excitement, yes, but also unease. Because now we're asking a different kind of question. If humanity really does leave Earth, will that journey belong to all of us, or only to those powerful enough to control the rockets? For decades, launching a rocket was something only a handful of governments could afford. It meant billion-dollar budgets, thousands of engineers, and years, sometimes decades, of planning. No one imagined that a private company built like a tech startup could step into that world and flip the model upside down. But SpaceX didn't just step in. They redefined the rules. They built a closed-loop system. Design, test, manufacture, all in months, not years. They slashed satellite launch costs from $60 million to around $15 million. And they did what no one else had: fly a rocket, land it, and then fly it again. But behind the headlines and live streams lies a deeper shift. SpaceX has started to move the center of gravity in space from nations to companies. In the past, if you wanted to reach space, you needed a flag. Now, you just need a contract. Small nations, research labs, telecom startups, they all line up to launch with SpaceX because they're fast and cheaper and already operating on a scale no one else can match. That sounds like democratization, access, opportunity, and in many ways, it is. But power, too, is changing hands. Who controls low Earth orbit when tens of thousands of satellites are deployed by a single firm? Who governs what gets launched and where? And who owns the data flowing through those private constellations? SpaceX isn't just the most prolific rocket company on Earth. It now manages the largest active satellite network in history. With Starlink, it has more users in more countries than any other satellite internet provider, public or private. This isn't just innovation, it's infrastructure, it's policy, it's soft power. And it signals a new era where leadership in space is no longer based on national strength, but on how fast you can build, launch, iterate, and dominate. The risks we've never faced before. Orbits, data, and decisions of war. For much of the 20th century, space was treated as neutral ground, a place for cooperation, science, discovery. But that's changing, and it's happening faster than our laws, our ethics, and our institutions can catch up. SpaceX, a private company, now operates the largest satellite fleet in human history. With over 6,000 Starlink satellites orbiting Earth, they control global internet coverage, communication in war zones, and, in some cases, the ability to turn access on or off. This isn't theory, it's happened. During the war in Ukraine, Starlink became a lifeline, for soldiers, civilians, and emergency services alike. But one single decision to restrict access in a certain region changed the dynamics of the battlefield. And it raised an uncomfortable question. Who gets to decide? Governments, voters, or corporate leadership behind closed doors? Beyond the battlefield lies another looming threat: space debris. Tens of thousands of satellites, moving at 27,000 kilometers per hour, share the same narrow band of low Earth orbit. A single collision could trigger a domino effect, creating a cloud of debris that could wipe out satellites, missions, and even human life. And with companies like SpaceX, OneWeb, and Amazon racing to launch more, we face a future where space traffic may become more dangerous than space travel itself. Yet no global treaty today can enforce satellite traffic laws, regulate orbital capacity, or hold companies accountable for the long-term safety of the skies. Just as in the early days of aviation, the technology is moving faster than the guardrails. We're entering a second space age, but this one is not about flags and footprints. It's about bandwidth and control. And the most powerful force in this new era may not be a government agency, but whoever owns the launch pad and controls the signal. Industry-wide disruption. Adapt or be left behind. There was a time when space meant government agencies, giant budgets, long timelines, national pride. Think NASA, ESA, Roscosmos. Agencies that defined space for decades, with missions planned years, sometimes decades in advance. Then came SpaceX, and suddenly, the rules didn't just bend, they broke. SpaceX proved that a company, leaner, faster, and private, could out-launch, out-engineer, and out-innovate some of the biggest players in the world, and the shockwave spread fast. NASA no longer builds all its own spacecraft. Instead, it buys rides on rockets built by the same company it once viewed as a disruptor. Space agencies across Europe and Asia are reevaluating their partnerships. New players, startups from South Korea, Brazil, the UAE, are entering the space race not as spectators, but as serious contenders. And why not? With costs down and access up. The barriers that once made space feel unreachable are starting to fall, but that doesn't mean the game is easier. It's just faster. A startup might get one shot to prove its launch system works. National programs face pressure to commercialize or become obsolete. Entire industries, communications, weather, navigation, are beginning to rely on platforms they don't control. What once was a closed circle of engineers and bureaucrats has become a global network. A hybrid of governments, companies, investors, and visionaries. That means more collaboration, more innovation, and inevitably, more conflict. Who decides what gets priority in orbit? How do we prevent interference between hundreds of constellations? And what happens when one company's delay causes millions in losses across half the globe? SpaceX didn't just speed up space, they accelerated everything around it. And now, anyone who wants to stay in this game, from national agencies to university labs, must choose, adapt or fall behind. Space, a stepping stone toward the bigger future. Elon Musk once said, "I'm not doing this just to launch rockets. I'm doing it because I believe that if humanity is to survive long-term, we must become a multi-planetary species." Whether you agree or not, that vision speaks to a growing truth of our time. We're moving forward at incredible speed, but the ground beneath us is growing less certain. Climate change, environmental collapse, global pandemics, the looming risks of unchecked AI, the threat of war. All of it makes the idea of somewhere else feel less like science fiction and more like a necessary plan B. A new direction, a way to secure the future of our kind if the worst were to come. In that light, space is no longer a destination. It's the next natural step. It's not out there anymore. It's becoming an extension of who we are. SpaceX, flawed, imperfect, and deeply ambitious, has taken that idea and made it real. or at least started to. Space is no longer reserved for billion-dollar state programs. Now, we're talking about civilian spaceflight, lunar refueling stations, a scheduled mission to Mars, and a generation of kids learning to code with dreams of building spacecraft. Every major leap in human history was once considered impossible. Crossing oceans, taking flight, splitting the atom, connecting the world with a single tap. Now, leaving Earth may be next. Space, if we see it clearly, isn't just a stage for technological power. It's a reminder that the boundaries of what humans can do are still expanding, and that our hunger to explore new frontiers has never truly gone away.